Greetings, JNUC attendees. Welcome to the second annual K12 Innovative Educator panel. I'm Mike Lawrence, and I wanted to welcome you all. We've got an amazing lineup of panelists to share their expertise and experiences using Apple and Jamf in an innovative capacity. And I'm here, as always, with my co-host and teammate, Emily. Why don't you want to kick off and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Emily McRoberts-Froese, and I'm one of your leadership executives here at Jamf. This, too, is my second year of doing this innovative panel, and what we've heard is it's the biggest and the largest, so sit back and relax and enjoy this time together. I'm coming to you with a little over 17 and a half years of public school experience, working with kids from second grade all the way to junior, senior English. Devices all over the map. Just really love what I do and really excited to learn from these educators today. What about you, Mike?
Fantastic. And it's great to be part of the largest, I would add best panel. I'll just say it. I mean, I think it's clear that JNUC's had in its virtual years. I also a longtime educator and taught high school English, did administration, went into nonprofit, and got the opportunity to connect with educators all over the world that are using technology innovatively. So it's a great chance to have a conversation like that here at JNUC. So with that, I want to take us in and get to know our panel. So we have Karen Ozins, Daniela Jovi, Morgan Cave. We've got Matt Pullen, who can't join us live, but we're going to catch up with him throughout this presentation through the magic of pre-recorded edited video. And of course, Chris Tenbarge. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. And we're going to jump in and have them introduce themselves so much better than I could do it with the first question. And I'll kick it off with, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us which Apple and Jamf solutions you use.
Hi, my name's Karen. I'm from Perth, WA, Western Australia. I've been in the school for 17 years at Kelmscott Senior High School, which is one of our local public high schools. We do from year 7 to year 12. So we range from 12-year-olds to 18. Basically, we use the Jamf solution to control all of our devices. We've got 1,300 students in the school with over 1,800 devices. Pretty much, we've got about 900 plus Apple devices, and that's just the iPads, and about 300-400 Apple Macs. So we find that the Jamf and Monkey used together work brilliantly to help the kids learn whatever they need to learn. We can control, what they're doing and all that sort of stuff. So, it helps with the cybersecurity levels of the school, with the education department. It's great. I love the products, and I love Apple. So I'm an Apple girl.
Well, so my name is Daniela. How are you? I'm from Mexico City, and I've been in education for 15 years now. I started being the technology coordinator at the school I'm working at, which is Cumbres International School. It's a private school for the past 5 years, and I'm very excited. I agree with Karen. My school is a little bit smaller. We have like 400 iPads, and we use Yam School, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to the school because we can be able to guide the students through this process about using technology the correct way. So that's me.
I'm Morgan Cave, and I am in Richardson ISD, which is just north of Dallas, Texas, and we have about 37,000 students here in our district. And I started off as an elementary teacher and did that for about 12 years. And then I was an instructional technology specialist for 5 years. And I'm now in a role as a director of instructional technology here. So we have iPads in the hands of all of our students pre-K through 6. And then we also have laptops and iPads with our staff. And then we have Apple TVs in every classroom. So we are using Jamf Pro to manage about 35,000 Apple devices.
Hello, my name is Chris Tenbarge. I'm the manager for technology experience here in Nashville, Tennessee at Metro Nashville Public School District. We got about 65,000 students, and we are relatively new Jamf Pro customers. We By the end of this year, hope to have 10,000 iPads and about 2,000 Macs enrolled in our in the system. And so far we're pretty happy people. We're getting the job done, supporting the needs of our students and teachers here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Hi everyone, so my name is Matt Pullen. I am currently a senior lecturer at the University of South Wales and also an Apple professional learning specialist, covering most of the EMEA region, but primarily working across the UK. We use Jamf Pro at the university to manage our devices. We have around 300 students enrolled within our IT program, and they are iPad one-to-one. However, at the moment, we're just starting to roll out getting them into Jamf, because we've always used a bring your own device program. So we're looking at integrating them to take advantage of the Jamf features such as a Jamf Teacher and Jamf Student to really support us both in delivery, but also having our future teachers understand the role of technology and the role of Jamf in their own classrooms when it comes to them delivering when they're out on placement, etc., and obviously for their future development.
Fantastic. I appreciate all of you being here, and I love the fact that we've got this worldwide group. So really exciting, and I look forward to the conversation. And I'm going to hand off to you, Emily. You could take us to the next question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we've all been in education the last 5 years, right? And there's been a little bit of a change here and there. Little, right? Just a little. So I just want to kind of listen in and on your thoughts on how have your pedagogical mindsets changed over the last 5 years?
Okay, I can start this one off. Basically, due to COVID saw a lot of difference between the way we taught or the way we teach here in Australia. We were not very online institute. A lot of our teachers taught with pen and paper and book. And when COVID hit and we were shut down, we had no choice but to go online. So by using programs like Jamf and also Google Classroom, we have Education Perfect and a product over here called ClickView, which is an online video learning system for the kids. We were able to go from basically being a paper and book school to being an online school. So by doing that, all the teaching staff, they learnt new skills. The students, they learnt new skills. They seem to take to it a lot better because for some unknown reason, I don't know what it's like over your way, but over here, kids take to their phones and iPads a lot better than opening up a book and reading words. So to actually get those students that we couldn't engage in the class are now engaged and they love what they're doing. We can restrict what we do by using Jamf, so they're getting a safe, a cyber-friendly tour of the net. But they're loving it because it's all interactive and it's just not pen and paper anymore. It's we've managed to open up a complete new world by going online. So that's really helped us, helped our school, and helped the teachers, and just kids. Just overall, it's more of an enjoyment in a learning area. So that's what we found over here.
Mm-hmm. Can I slide right in? Okay.
Absolutely.
So what we learned at school after the pandemic, because we can take hours and talk about all of our 1,000 experiences during the pandemic. But what we learned here in school after the pandemic is to involve kids, because what the pandemic did, probably in your schools and with your students also, they had all access, and it was justifiable because they needed to work online every single day at every single time. So they thought they had a lot of access, and they did. So what we did when we came back to school is we involved our kids for them to be able to use technology in a proper way. I don't know if I'm getting if you're getting the idea, that
Yes. Yeah.
for them to produce instead of consume what they're seeing. So we involved our kids in what they wanted us to provide to them. because with Jamf, it's an amazing tool, but you block a lot of things. So instead of blocking them and giving them the negative part of you cannot do this right now or you cannot do this anymore, we involved them in the process so we could get into a neutral point between the correct way of using technology and what they wanted. So I don't know if anybody else had some experience in that area, or am I crazy?
Yeah,
Well,
I think
certainly.
that
Oh, go ahead.
we had our devices for a long time. And so we were set up well in terms of having the infrastructure in place already. But there was this misconception that just because we already had them, that everybody knew how to use them to teach in that way and to learn in that way. And we realized what a challenge it is to keep kids engaged when they're not being held captive in your four walls of your classroom. And I think moving out of that, what we've really taken away is the mindset of being really intentional with planning and really thinking about what has to be done together and face to face, or how do you maximize that time? If you have kids face to face and you have a group and you have them live, whether that's virtually or in person, what can you really leverage out of that? Creating together, having discussions, getting feedback, sharing your work, doing all those things that we really missed when we weren't live. And what can be done asynchronously, and how can we teach students to balance those things? And in my role, how can we plan professional learning for teachers that supports that idea, being really intentional with face-to-face time, and then in turn, supporting our teachers being really intentional with what we do together.
Yeah, well, I was going to add my personal experience, because I'm a father of 3 teenagers. They communicate with their friends through media. They take pictures, they remix them, they annotate on top, and they post it back. And it's how they talk to each other now. And when I'm in the classroom and in high schools and middle school even, when I see teachers really excelling, with engagement, they're using these Apple devices to allow students to communicate with each other in that same way. Creating content, remixing it. It's not a task that they're given, but it's part of the natural conversation in class.
In my role as an Apple professional learning specialist, I utilize all of the things that we need to make sure that deployment is successful, Jamf being the probably the main piece of that puzzle to make sure that schools are set up in the right way. So I would say in all school deployments that I'm supporting from the very start, we always talk about Jamf as their solution, be that just to make sure they've got things set up, but obviously for schools that are a little bit further down the journey, making sure that they understand the role of things like Jamf teacher and Jamf student and Jamf parent to really help them make the most of the devices that they have in their classrooms. I guess my mindset towards technology has changed, possibly away from focusing too much on the apps and the devices to really thinking about what that can unlock. So it's still about the apps and the devices, but possibly coming at it from a slightly different angle. Obviously, the pandemic has changed a lot for many, and I suppose that in itself helped me to start to understand that, whereas I learn very differently, I think, to the traditional aspect of education, I think what the pandemic did was help people see that's probably more a norm for many students, and it might not be such a minority as it was before. I think seeing my own son and how he learnt, and having that bit of space, having the technology to answer questions for him, to find out a little bit more about the topic he was doing, to be creative with what he was doing, I think it definitely made me realize that there's an alternative approach. I think one thing that I've really focused on in the last couple of years is universal design for learning, making sure that teachers are aware of those different ways that students can maybe demonstrate knowledge, also different ways that they can produce and present information to students to engage them. So that's been a huge transition for me, I think, over the last few years.
Love that. Love that. I love that, it started with opening up the world, involving kids, being intentional about planning, and then just the organic use of devices, and magically kids are engaged. I mean, I know there's a lot more that goes into that magic. I don't want to discredit that.
Yeah.
But I love that, the last 5 years have really brought about positive change. So, yeah, we could talk about this all day, but we're not going to. We're going to move on to question number 3. So, Mike, go ahead.
You bet. Well, and I love that you guys brought up engagement, because it is the next question. What are the best strategies? This is that magic you were just talking about, Emily. What are the best strategies for successful student engagement using iPad in your environment? All of you mentioned using iPad. So let's hear from you all. What are your best strategies?
Well,
I think we've
actually
already
found that,
hit on it.
yeah, I mean, we sort of, by using Jamf, we're able to remove all of your Facebook and Snapchat and all the stuff that will drag kids away from their actual learning environment. Although we still add apps that are fun, because we don't want them just to be all business and no fun. You're not going to engage the kids that way. But we have over here, we have a gifted and talented program, which those students actually are given devices to take home. So by using Jamf, we actually, between the hours of 8 and 3, they're locked down to what they need to use for school. But at 3 o'clock, we open it up, they take them home, and they can do whatever they like. They can use their Facebook, they can Snapchat their friends, they can do whatever. But during school hours, we only really supply the apps that will keep them engaged, but are educational at the same time. And that's how we've managed to keep the kids right on task. And they've been great about it. They've really taken to it. I can honestly say we're not in a very high socioeconomic area, but the kids, they're really good. They've just really taken to it. And by being able to do that through Jamf is brilliant for me, because I'm the only person in the whole school. So basically, there is no other techs on board. I'm it. So for me, I can just go straight into Jamf and go, you've been a naughty boy, you're losing that. Or you've been a good kid. Yeah, okay, we'll put this on there. You can have a game or two. So yeah, it's great. That's how we've managed to engage the kids.
Yeah, engagement's a real struggle.
Some of the things that I'm terrible at this. Every time I pick the worst time.
Well,
I was just going to say some of the things that we've already talked about in the last question, with giving students that opportunity to be involved in having a voice. So when we were talking previously about asking the kids, what they want and how they want to work and how they want to learn, anytime you bring them into that conversation, they're going to be more engaged, because they have that ownership and they feel valued, and they know that they're a part of that, and it feels more relevant. And then, of course, giving them any opportunities to authentically create and share, they're going to be more engaged as well.
Yeah, I was going to add, one of the misconceptions that I'm battling in my district is, there's a stigma with iPads that these are for elementary. The lower grades, they can draw, they can't really type, so that's where they belong. But we're seeing a lot of potential for Apple products, not just iPads, but Macs too. And classrooms with Macs and iPads working together in our high schools. And that's a place where engagement sorely needed. A lot of struggles there. As pandemic has made that worse too. But just a couple of apps. If you could take a picture or draw on it and airdrop it to a friend or airdrop it to your teacher, you can do a lot.
Yeah. I also want to add the part of training for teachers, because this part is very important, because as you were saying before on the last question, it's important the objective, the purpose on how you're going to be using technology. So it's important for teachers to know, because it's very easy to get lost, because you can ask for a presentation, oh, I'm using technology. That's not true. That's not technology with purpose. So, and this way, it's not a good way to engage your students. So training teachers for them to be able to get to know the correct way of using and engaging your students, it's very important, because as we were saying before, this part, I'm like Sofia Vergara, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna start talking again, okay? So let's laugh. Ha. Okay, so as we were saying before, I'm sorry, as we were saying before, it's very important for teachers to be able to understand which is the purpose they're going to teach and how they're going to teach it and transmit it to their students. So training is a very important part, I think.
Love it.
I have to agree with that completely, because I know a lot of our older teachers were scared of using technology because the students knew a lot more than what they do. So they were frightened to stand in front of the class and say, okay, do this, do that. Where the kids would turn around and go, yeah, but if you do it this way, it's so much better. So getting that confidence in your teachers and training them and working alongside them has so much benefit that, yeah, it's needed. It's definitely needed.
I think for me, the most successful strategies for engaging students with iPad are around utilizing the device to give choice. Like I said previously around universal design, I think when you design learning opportunities for students that provide them with that unique approach that works for them in order to demonstrate knowledge or access information or whatever it might be, I think that's when you see that better engagement from students. Empowerment is so important. When you provide students with opportunity to take control of their own learning rather than complete a task that is teacher given, I think you see a different aspect in many learners, not necessarily all learners, but definitely students respect, I think, the opportunity to try something for themselves. And often we see that kind of balance between teachers fearing that they have to know everything and not wanting the students to know more than them. But actually, sometimes when you kind of just open the gates and just allow students to teach teachers different things and look, I've tried it this way and it worked for me and this is how I did it, I think you can build on relationships in the classroom, and that in itself then builds that engagement as well.
Well, I don't want to cut off that great conversation, but Emily, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to have a funny quip for Karen. She called them older teachers. And as a gray-haired educator, I like to think of myself as experienced, maybe not older. I'm just kidding. It's a play on words. Because I am one of those. I was one of those educators that got nervous when the kids knew more than I did. But there's so much power in tapping into what kids know and what they can do. So I just love when educators are able to be accepting of that feedback from their kids in the classroom. I think it's great.
Yeah, my entire career, I've focused on professional development. And I find, as Emily and Karen and Daniela mentioned, when you are willing to let go and make mistakes and learn together, you find so many wonderful serendipity moments in your classroom. When you shift gears and allow the students sometimes to take the lead on the technology, if you don't know, you can learn together. And it's so powerful. And it models good learning. It's you as the educator, the adult, the experienced teacher, to demonstrate that you can learn too, and show what that looks like. I also liked Chris's point that we can't forget that secondary, really, there's a lot of amazing, powerful uses of Apple technology, iPad and otherwise, at the secondary level. So I appreciate all the things you all had to add to that question. Emily, you want to take us to our next question?
I absolutely do. So, in kind of thinking of continuing to learn more, and we at Jamf are always wanting to hear how our tools are being used, we wanted to ask, how does Jamf support your instructional goals?
I think for me, Jamf is integral to everything that we do, be it whether I'm in university and making sure that everything is set up and working, specifically in that kind of remote environment of, students aren't always on campus at the same time, and having that software that allows things to just be seamless. But equally, when I'm doing the professional learning work in schools, it's confidence for teachers that might not have that technical knowledge, but they spend a long time planning for these, fantastic creative lessons. And it's the trust to know that it's all going to work because the apps are all where they're meant to be and the devices are updated, and just having that kind of back end, I think it gives teachers the confidence to try these new things. I think there's an overwhelming passion for teachers to want to do a lot more with technology, but at times the issue is the fact that there's a lack of trust in, is it all going to work? And I think from my experience of working with schools and leaders, Jamf is the missing piece in many schools' kind of setup. If they don't have that there, that's usually where the problems lie. Not necessarily that they've highlighted that, but the problems come around, the apps weren't updated, or only 5 of the devices had iMovie on it, or whatever it might be. And I think having that backup, that background system, I think is absolutely essential in making sure teachers can just do their jobs.
Well, our institutional goal is to support teachers. When I was a teacher, and I taught for 10 years, I had a lot of technology in my classrooms. I knew how to use it well, and it seemed to make things work. So they just let me have it, and I learned a lot because I made mistakes with that technology. Kind of like what Mike was saying. Your students are going to make mistakes, but they learn from those mistakes. I grew as a teacher because I had access to these tools and I had control over these tools. Now, 10 years after switching, I've been managing Apple products for 10 years in different ways, and I still have that same mindset. I want to support my teachers by allowing them, to maybe discover things, and if they come to me with ideas, I'm inclined to listen to them. I'm inclined to try something, even if I think it might not work out. They're going to learn something from it. They're going to be a better teacher. School's going to grow. The district's going to grow. Jamf helps us because we've been a Jamf customer for almost a year now. I do feel like we can scale in a large district with 65,000 students. We can scale this deployment and still respond to those needs of those teachers. I mean, it's worked so far. It's reliable, it's flexible. We're getting a lot done. We're happy people.
I share the feeling. We're very happy people too with Jamf School. And we this year we're implementing something new in Jamf. I don't know if everybody else knows about this, but the parental control, because as Karen said earlier, you can manage your iPads and you can manage everything while kids are in school. And you can block certain things and you can do a lot of things better when they are in your institution. But when they go away, they have a little more liberty. So this way, in our school, we're a community and we work very closely with our parents. So we want to be both parents and teachers responsible for teaching our students how to be a digital citizen, a responsible digital citizen. So this way, this year, we're implementing this part of parental control with Jamf School. We're very excited, and I'll tell you how it goes. But this is like something very, very important that we're doing this year as a community because it's something that concerns everybody. It's not just something that's for the responsibility of the school, but also of the parents and also teaching the students. And Jamf has been very supportive in that way because it has helped us to build guidelines for us to be able to transmit this to our community, students, parents, teachers, everybody.
Awesome.
Yep, I have to agree with both of them. I just love the simplicity of Jamf. I just think it is such a manageable program. I can have staff come in and say, "Hey, we were looking at this app. What do you think? Can we run it? Sure, let's give it a go." And we can push it out like straight away. There's no more waiting 2 or 3 weeks to be able to push or install an app or get it running, and you don't have to run around to the classrooms and install it on every single app. We can just push it out, and it's so much easier from a technical point of view that it just makes my job so much easier. But by having the control over like your cybersecurity and stuff like that, we know that our kids are actually having a safe experience. They won't be trolled on the network, but it's safe and it's fun. We do lock them down only because our students are a little bit directionally challenged and they will go elsewhere to where they're meant to go. So we do take away a lot of the fun apps, but it all works. And Jamf, it just works. Like it works on the Macs, it works on the app, on the iPads. It just syncs beautifully. And it's not a hard program to use. It's just so convenient and so easy. So, for us, it's really, really good. The staff can take to it. As I say to the staff, just try it. You can't break it. And if you do break it, we just re-image the iPad. So, it's easy fix. Just go for it. Just try what you want to try. Get the kids engaged. If you break it, I'll re-image. Easy done.
So our district motto here is where all students connect, learn, grow, and succeed. So as the instructional technology department, obviously we are supporting our teachers in ensuring that they can do these things and that our students are ready to learn every day. And I can speak from a time before Jamf because when I was a classroom teacher, we were the first campus. I taught at a magnet school, and we were the first campus to be one-to-one with devices, and we had iPads, and I was teaching first grade in 2013, and there was no MDM, and I touched every single device all the time. And you think about all the things that teachers prep already, and now add that to the list. And then I moved to fifth grade where the classes are larger, and I was touching every single iPad. Well, and I got to a place where I had the kids trained pretty well. Okay, go into here, add this, do this. But I mean, that was a lot of extra time and just another thing to be thinking about all the time and another thing to be managing. So what I love now with us having Jamf Pro as a district, and we got that when I moved into my role as a specialist, was when we were planning for our rollout for every campus, all 54 campuses to go one-to-one. And we have a mixed environment, but that meant 41 elementaries getting iPads out in the hands of their students. And so that's when we began using Jamf Pro. And so I love that we are able to streamline things for teachers and students and make sure that they are ready to teach and learn every day without having to touch devices, without having to manage those things. And we can make things available. We can keep students focused, whether it's iPad, whether it's their MacBook Air or MacBook Pro for staff, even the Apple TVs. Being able to set those up and configure those in a way that makes it fast and easy for people to connect and get going. I just love that we can make things more simple for our students and also for our families. We love having that self-service app library for our students that we can categorize. And again, my favorite word, streamline, because if you go into the App Store and you're looking for something, you're going to get so many results. And how do you filter through what's safe for our students? What's collecting information, what's easy to use? That's too much for our students, for our families, and for our teachers. So the fact that we can work collaboratively through that process and then make things available for them that they know are already safe and vetted and a good fit, I just love that we can do that for them.
And I love that you use the word streamline. I think that's a great word that it's just great. But I also love that, you talked about the empowerment and really saving educators instructional time. If you don't have to touch every device and you don't have to do a 2-week request for an app and you don't have to do all this other stuff, it's just magically there, going back to the magic that we talked about earlier. It's just magical, right? You gain, instructional time, you don't lose student engagement, you keep their attention, the devices are working. And if it breaks, like Karen said, you just re-image it and you get going again. Like, it's great.
You just erase all content and settings.
That's right. That's right. You just push this magical little button. Yep. But I also love, Daniela, and we've talked before, and including those parents and really empowering and including parents in their learners' educational journey. I know as a former campus principal, when these devices started going home, it was very scary because a lot of families didn't have devices, or they didn't have an Apple device and they didn't know what was inside of it, right? Or what the kids would have access to. And to be able to say, it's a safe place for your kids to be, and here we're going to empower you to set parameters, even in your space, is a very magical thing to be able to say. And it's streamlined, Morgan. It's streamlined. It's a streamlined process. So with that, I know we're cutting close on time. I think Mike would agree we could talk for hours on this, but I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yes, we could probably speak for hours with this group. It's amazing. And on that theme of magic, another magical aspect of doing this virtually is that you all, the audience, can ask questions live throughout this whole thing. So hopefully you've already been asking those questions, but now is the time in the presentation when we set aside some time for our panelists to respond in chat live in case there's questions that remain unanswered. And while we're doing that, we wanted to also make sure that you were all aware of this amazing new show that we have that Emily will tell you about called the Jamf Breakfast Club.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jamf Breakfast Club is when we just, Mike and I and some other hosts that we have on our team get together. We bring Starbucks, we bring donuts, we bring, sometimes there's an omelet shows up. You never know what's going to show up on the Breakfast Club, but it's a time to get together with one of our amazing customers and just have a conversation about maybe one of the questions we asked today. We hear about their integration and how they're using Apple in their classrooms. And it's just a really good time to listen, ask questions, and tell a story of success. Everybody wants to hear the good news, right? So if you are listening and you are part of our Jamf community, please reach out to us if you feel you have a story you'd like to share with us and join us for breakfast. We'd love to have you. We are currently doing this in the US and in EMEA. So we have 2 offerings throughout the month, but unfortunately, we can't fly you over to EMEA, but we can virtually connect with you and enjoy breakfast and a coffee in the morning. So that's Jamf Breakfast Club. If you're interested, please reach out to one of us. We'll have our contact information in this. We're also walking around at JNUC. If you want to just grab one of us and have a conversation, we'd love to talk to you there too.
Fantastic. And we just wanted to thank our panelists one more time. You guys brought insights, things I didn't even think of, and you reminded us just how powerful the software solutions coupled with Apple technology can really be for students of all ages and the educators that support them. So it's really helpful. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Emily, for jumping in and as always, co-hosting with such aplomb.
Absolutely.
Yes. Since we're going with the $5 words, I thought I'd throw that
There
in.
you go.
Thank you all. And I'd love to put up all the video up. If we can we put up all the panelists one more time, just as a big thank you, and we could all say goodbye. There. Oh, look, all 6 of us. Yay. All right. Thank you so much. And thanks to the awesome team that made all of this large virtual panel possible. So thanks to Mitch and his whole team.